Hello, everyone. My guest today is AJ Altman. He's the founder and CEO of Hover, a mobile app that is transforming home ownership by creating 3D home models from smartphone photos. Prior to founding the company, he was an engineer at Intel Corporation and served as an infantry officer in the United States Marine Corps. So, AJ, are you ready to take us to the top?
Hi, Nathan. Yes.
All right.
Sounds great. Thanks for the time.
You bet. All right. So tell us about this company, Hover. First off, what do you guys do? And then what's your revenue model? Is it a pure play SaaS company?
Yes. So not quite. What we do, the boring way of saying it is we generate property data. I think that the interesting way of saying it and what's truly unique about it, there are two things. One, in a simple way, you pull out a smartphone with our app and you take a few photos of your home or any building object, and within about an hour, you have a complete structured 3D data set of that building on your phone or in the cloud. So cool technology. We use computer vision and deep learning to do that, to turn grids of 2D pixels into structured 3D. Why is that interesting? Well, because effectively what it does is it unlocks the $100 to $200 billion exterior property services business that no one's ever been able to sell online, right? It effectively allows us to create ways to sell products that go on buildings online for the first time ever.
You're talking whether it's shingles or type
How
of
do we
brick
get paid?
or vinyl.
That's right. Yeah. Any exterior property service or product. So when you think products, yes, it'd be siding, roofing, paint, windows, gutters, shutters, et cetera, right? When you think services, well, the biggest service that goes effectively on a property is your insurance policy, right? So similarly, if you want to scope the work that goes into applying a policy to a specific home, you need a bunch of data about it, and that's what we generate. So how do we get paid? That was your second question. We get paid transactionally today. We effectively, every time we generate that data set, that data package for our professional customer, someone who's working on a building or selling a service or product to that building, they pay us some flat fee of typically in the vicinity of $40 or $50.
Walk me through who that actual customer is. Is it the homeowner or Home Depot trying to sell paint? Like, who is it actually?
Yeah, today it's not so much the homeowner. We do have a small number of DIY homeowners that segment is growing rapidly, but the lion's share of our customer base and nearly all of our paying customers are contractors. They're people who are selling those products on and hence the service of labor onto that home for the homeowner at the kitchen table. So you sit down as a homeowner and you're buying a new exterior project, and a contractor who uses Hover will open up their laptop and show you a 3D model of your home that we generated. They'll spin it around. They'll work through the design interactively with you on the laptop in front of you and put those new products on your home and show you what it would look like, and then quickly get to a quote that's based upon the measurement data that we generate.
So each time that contractor, let's say a painter, right, is doing that scan, they're paying essentially $40 to you each time.
That's correct.
Interesting. How do you plan in terms of your own expenses related to team or the next dev cycle when these are kind of a per scan basis, or are they pretty predictable? They do grow over time and you can count on them.
Yes, they're actually shockingly predictable. This is a giant market. We've touched a small percentage of it, but we not only have customers who, when they join us, they never leave. Nearly anyone who joins our product and starts to generate this data on once they've done it 2 or 3 times, they are not leaving this product.
But AJ, what does that mean? What does that mean, never leave? They use it once, they pay to use it once. So how do you measure never leave?
They never return to a tape measure, right? They never stop using our solution in their sales cycle. And so you can look at the predictability of our solution in the context of the exterior home improvement segment. And if there are a couple of 100,000 contracting companies in America, and we start to convert them in using our platform every day at the kitchen table, they not only don't leave our platform and go back to a tape measure and doing it by hand, but they continue to grow their usage into their total book of business, right? So they start by using us as a one-off. They try us on one property, and then they realize it really helps them with their measurements. And then pretty quickly they realize, oh, wow, homeowners actually are more likely to buy from me if I use this presentation and use this 3D model in front of them. And then before you know it, they're using us on every single lead that they run.
And can you give me a sense today in terms of maybe volume you're working with? So, in a given month, maybe last month, how many total scans are you processing?
Yeah, so we're not public about either the number of transactions or the revenue. I can tell you we've grown 4x year over year over year, but we haven't exposed actual numbers there. I can tell you roughly how many estimates happen across North America every year for these types of projects. It's between 20 and 30 million.
That you said that's per year, just North America?
That's correct.
Okay.
For exterior projects only.
Okay, great. Put this on a timeline for me. When did you launch the company? What year?
We launched the company in March of 2011, but we launched this product. It took us almost 3.5 years to get this product in the market. So we launched this product at the end of 2015. So we've had now 3 full seasons of the product in the market, 16, 17, and 18.
How'd you fund yourself for the first 3 years when you were developing, or first 4 years?
The first product we sold to DoD, Department of Defense. I don't know if you saw you did. You mentioned it earlier. So I had a brief hiatus from being a software guy in the Marine Corps as an infantry officer. And when I returned from that experience back to the Bay here, told everyone I knew I was curious to join a small team or join someone trying to build a new product and be a part of that. And met a couple of engineers that introduced me to photogrammetry, or I guess what you call state-of-the-art 3D reconstruction at the time. And that was the first use case that was evident to me. It was evident to me that this would be a very powerful solution for folks trying to get a sense of a place remotely before they're about to enter a dangerous situation. So we bootstrapped the company off of revenues through that first product, as well as, of course, seed.
And that was, just to be clear, that was a DoD contract, basically.
It was a number of DoD contracts. Yes, number of deals we did selling software to help the U.S. government in tough places.
Just to try and really make this ring home for my audience, this might be, obviously it's very dangerous to go up to the Osama bin Laden compound, but if they had images of it, it makes it easier to recreate what that might look like for SEAL training or things like that.
Certainly. What we generate today is a scaled, accurate digital version of that physical building in the real world. So you can imagine how that's useful for contractors, but of course it's useful for people dealing with buildings and other scenarios as well.
Sure. Yeah. So you've raised obviously additional capital since then. What's total capital into the company to date?
Again, we haven't disclosed the total amount raised. We closed our Series B last December. You can see that publicly. It's a $25 million round led by GV.
Yeah. What do you mean you don't disclose it? I mean, most of the stuff you have to file with the SEC. Publicly, it says you raised about $42 million. Is that accurate?
It's not too far off, but it's not accurate.
Okay. How would you be able to raise where you don't have to do file with the SEC and make that public?
Yeah, I mean, look, you can look online and see what various third parties will say we've raised, but yeah, I can just tell you, you can see that last round was a Series B of 25 million.
Yeah, no. The reason I'm asking, I mean, these are not third parties; these are government forms that you file. I'm just if you found a way to be able to raise capital without having to disclose it via the government forms, that's valuable for my audience. So, is there something you're doing that allows you to bring in additional capital without reporting it?
Certainly not.
Okay, got it. I want to make sure there wasn't something. So, why would that number not be accurate if we're just adding up the government forms?
I guess I'd have to look at the forms that you're adding up, but
what's the SEC? It's the filings.
So. Understood. I guess I can't speak to what numbers, what data you're looking at specifically. I know we certainly file the way is appropriate. But I can just say the number isn't 42. I don't know where the discrepancy is coming from because I haven't seen, I guess, what you're looking at. But
fair enough, no problem. Let's move on. Talk to me more about how you've scaled the team. So obviously you got paired up with these 3 engineers. Now, obviously you're CEO today, were you brought in really as a co-founder as you guys pivoted away from just DoD contracts?
No. So I was, a part of the founding of Hover. The engineers I met was prior to Hover. One of those engineers, along with myself, were the first 2 employees as we founded Hover.
Okay.
About a year after I met them.
And what's the team look like today, AJ? How many folks?
So so the team, we just crossed 115 employees. We went from 50 to 110 in the last 12 months. So we're growing rapidly. But yes, the number was in the 20s the year before that. So we've doubled, and we're looking at about another doubling again this year.
Yeah. Well, look, and by the way, team growth is great, but I always hesitate to let people brag about team growth because really that just means more expenses, right? So help me understand how what kinds of hires are you making to make sure it correlates back to revenue growth?
Yeah, certainly. Bragging about being able to spend money. A lot of people can do that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Talk to me about your hiring strategy.
Yeah. So, well, look, as you know, it's tough. We're competing against, frankly, the 5 or 6 companies vying for world domination in the areas of deep learning and computer vision. And those companies all thankfully have a different story to tell than we do. We believe we have a center of excellence around those 2 disciplines, particularly in 3D reconstruction, that is as good as there is on the planet. We think we know we're doing things here that others aren't doing, and so we have that story to tell about, hey, come here and take research and turn it into code that ships to, as you said, make money, literally make money in the core product, but also. When you're competing against a Google, Google has a lot of things that we can't bring to the table, but we have one thing they can't, which is we're not Google. And so it takes a unique type of person, but we're looking for people who not only want to work on problems that have never been solved before, that turn into products that get shipped and drive revenue around the core product, but for a company that hasn't already been there, that isn't the company, and want to be a part of like creating the next company that does something special in this realm. So that's sort of our strength in those areas, deep learning and computer vision. But as you can imagine, again, like the volume that we're starting to hit, of course, all of those platform and infrastructure challenges that come from scaling come into play here with front end, full stack, back end development. The data set that we're building, of course, is large and processing, and as compared to most products that are moving toward consumer and the kind of consumer scale we're touching, the amount of processing that happens transactionally for us is quite intensive. So a lot of cool problems here from a technical perspective. It's never been our challenge. We've been under the radar for the last 2 years, in part by intention. But of course, at this level of scale, we need to start to tell a little more of our story, and we find engineers get really excited about it.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense why they'd get excited about it. Can you give me a sense? So you said most of your customers are contractors. Can you give me kind of order of magnitude how many kinds of contractors you're working with today?
How many kinds of contractors?
Yeah, some order of magnitude. So are we talking hundreds of contractors, thousands, tens of thousands, millions?
Yeah, you're talking about. Hundreds of thousands of contracting companies in the country, and we're dealing with tens of thousands of them today.
Okay, so you would put, you really back into your market share at this point. What would you put your market share at right now?
Nathan, I'm sorry.
No problem. There's a definite amount of contractors in, say, North America. You also know how many are working with you. What do you put your market share at today?
Single digit percentage.
Okay, so plenty. You have to say that, right? It means plenty of room for growth.
Absolutely.
When you were negotiating the last round, when you were negotiating the last round, and were you, obviously valuations on SaaS companies are higher because the revenue is more predictable. I could see investors pushing back and going, hey, but this isn't really this is less predictable. It's transaction based. How did you kind of fight that in any kind of valuation conversations?
Yeah, well, the beauty is the data shows it, right? The beauty shows that it's quite predictable, that it is recurring. I haven't seen Uber's data specifically, but I could imagine in a similar corollary way, they're able to show at scale that customers join them, and there's a thing called negative churn that's happening that becomes relatively predictable within a band. And we see the same thing with thousands of companies, then tens of thousands of companies with many employees per company that join us and then just increase their usage over time, which we can model out.
Mm-hmm. And is this, the reason I'm asking is because I'm trying to get a sense if you're selling directly to the individual small business paint contractor in some suburb of Ohio, or if you're selling to a massive amount, kind of one-to-many approach where you'd be leveraging an inside sales team selling multi-seat kind of plans. Which one is it more? Where's most of your growth coming from?
Yes. So I'm sorry, you're cutting out, so I hope I'm not, but I'll just continue. So the answer is both. The answer is we have a very long tail of small SMBs who have maybe a couple of employees who do 10 or 20 roofs a year, right? They replace 10 or 20 roofs on buildings a year. And there's a very long tail of those customers who find us purely organically and are self-service and find our product and download our app, put their credit card on and start using our product without us ever touching them. But then, of course, there is a subset of very large contracting corporations in the country who maybe have a few hundred salespeople, and they're multi-regional. They have 4 or 5 offices across a couple of metros, and they might do a couple of $100 million a year in exterior projects. And in those cases, of course, those opportunities are large enough that we have a direct sales model, and we engage those larger customers to help educate and train their workforce and help them understand the value of what we do.
What is a leading indicator for you guys when you're looking at your cohort data that a customer is potentially at risk for shrinking or using you less? Everyone has some kind of shrinkage. I'm curious how you identify that. Is it just number of scans per month?
Yes. The amount of quote unquote like shrinkage of, a customer that becomes from our view active, right? They're doing 1 to 3 hovers per month is nearly zero. It's very small. For us, the true indicator is just when a customer, much more common in those first 3 hovers in their life, they drop off, right? Because of a lack of understanding of, say, what our product can do for them, or maybe they had a bad onboarding experience. We're continually removing friction from that process, or maybe they have confusion about the data that we need from them to collect to generate our output. And so that onboarding funnel is a challenge because unlike, say, Instagram or any other sort of easy to download experience where one creates an account and is off to the races, in our case, step 2 is after you've downloaded and created an account is put your shoes on and go outside and take some photos of your house, which, as you can imagine, is a big point of friction. Frequently, that's not possible. Frequently, someone thinks of us at work and they're not able to go outside, or they're on their couch and they don't want to get up and go outside. And so that portion of our funnel has quite a pinch on it. Thankfully, again, the data shows that there's an extreme pain point because those folks usually do come back.
Very good. Last few questions here, AJ, before we wrap up. It's a nice point to be in where your annual revenues are greater than what you've raised. It gives any entrepreneur significant leverage there. Do you have 50 million in sights here in 2019, or do you think you need another year to grow into that?
It's possible. Yeah.
Like possible. Comfortable possible or stretch uncomfortable goal possible?
Honestly, at 4x year over year, it becomes very hard to even answer your question. And that's the truth. Like, I won't be surprised if we beat that number, but I frankly won't be surprised if we're short on it. But yes, certainly you're in the right order of magnitude in terms of growth. I know you're trying to pin that down, but it's a viable number.
Yeah, no, it's good. And thanks, by the way, for answering the question. 4xing every year eventually becomes not possible when you get to a certain size. You're quickly, I think, approaching that size, right? I mean, we can kind of back into a minimum. You won't like me doing this, but I'm going to do it for my audience, right? If you've got, in the tens of thousands of customers, and you said your long tail are ones doing, call it 20 roofs a year, right? And you're doing $40 a scan. So say 2 roofs a month, right? At $40 a scan, that's $80 a month there, at least 10,000. That puts you at around $800,000 a month minimum. I assume you're way bigger than this minimum at that point, right? So if that's $12 million a year. If you're going to 4x that year over year, that puts you obviously in the range where you start, getting close to that $50 million mark.
It's a great Boston Consulting Group exercise. Yes.
Why do you call it a Boston Consulting Group exercise? These are minimums you gave me.
No. I mean, just because it's a traditional way of whiteboarding these things. Yeah, I get it. Your logic makes sense.
Yeah, very good. And then last question on the hiring. Oh, you said you've gone from 50 to 115 people. Are most of these people kind of inside sales reps going after larger accounts, or are they more engineers working on additional things to patent and productize?
Yeah, the largest group is R&D.
Yeah, very good. All right, let's wrap up with the famous 5 quick answers here. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
Oh, geez. I don't read business books much.
Favorite book?
Probably Good to Great. Just I guess because the book is about how teams win. Team always wins. And I guess that's the only book I can think of that's like a quote unquote business book that really stuck with me.
Number 2, AJ, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
Well, Elon Musk is in the news a lot. Wouldn't say I follow him, but I certainly appreciate the fact that he's a very purpose-driven guy. Obviously, I appreciate that.
Number 3, what billing tool are you using?
I'm sorry, what are we using?
What billing tool do you guys use to process all these payments?
Stripe.
Oh, you're all in Stripe. Okay, wow, that's great. Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
6 to 8.
Okay, not bad. And what's your situation? Married, single, kiddos?
Single, no kids.
Yeah, that's great. Total free time to go on the business. And how old are you?
41 today.
Today's your birthday.
Yes.
That's great. Happy birthday. All right, last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
I guess I wish he'd known he should have trusted himself a little more.
Guys, trust yourself more. Again, founded Hover after serving in the military, now serving tens of thousands of contractors. They simply take pictures of houses or things they're doing repairs or painting or roofing on, and they, using really incredible technology they've put together, create a 3D model which unlocks all kinds of value. They charge anywhere between $40 and kind of $60 per scan, have a big long tail, but also big corporate accounts as well. 115 people on the team, $42 million raised, obviously burning capital to drive growth, hoping to stay at 3 or 4x year over year growth. And wouldn't be surprised if he hits $50 million this year in revenue. We'll see what happens. AJ, thanks for taking us to the top.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.